And Representative Gomberg, as Tyler has noted, is the phone number. So we'll see what we can do. We've got Mayor Beth Wojtowski from Amity, from Dayton. We've got Mayor Michael Cape from Amity. We've got Al Bannon from Commissioner Bonamite, or Congresswoman Bonamite's office. I should actually think as I speak. We've got Wendy Belize from PGE. We've got Councillor Remy Drabkin on behalf of McMinnville. We have Abisha Stone from SEDCOR. We've got Joya Goodrum from the McMinnville Chamber of Commerce. We've got Shannon Buckmaster from the Chehalem Valley Chamber of Commerce. We've got Representative Bill Post, and he is representing in the background as well. I just want to note, Mayor Cape, take notice. We have Senator Roblan. We have Tyler from Representative Gomberg's office. We have Representative Gomberg himself, I believe. We have Commissioner Mary Sterrett, and we have Diane McLaren, who is the Director of Community Relations for Chemeketa Community College. All right, welcome everybody. And I'd love to get started with a federal update. I think Al is the only one here representing a federal delegation. Al, what can you tell the community about what's happening in DC and here on the call?
Yeah, hi, I'm just sending a message. Can you come back to me? I'm just checking in with my boss to see if there's something that I can share, and then I'd like to share that if I can, but we'll go to someone else and then come back to me.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thank you, appreciate that, apologize.
Oh yeah, we'll go to our legislative delegation, and Senator Roblan, what would you like to tell people in the community today? And you're gonna need to unmute yourself. Perfect.
Just to remind people as we move into phase 2, that we are seeing an uptick in cases of COVID across the state under phase 1, and places like Lincoln County, who chose not to apply, is having this outbreak at their fish plant. We have to be careful, and we have to understand that we have responsibilities, as every local government knows, to contact, trace people, and figure out where these cases are coming from and what's happening. The interesting thing about the fish plant was that about 90 to 95% of those who tested positive were asymptomatic. And so we have a strange disease, which gives a lot of opportunity for people to get infected without knowing it. So I know we had a big conversation earlier with Lincoln County about requiring masks, and the requirement of masks has only to do with protecting others. It doesn't help you much, but it really does protect people if you end up being asymptomatic and you're coughing around your friends. So I hope people start taking that seriously personally. We have been working, we had an e-board last week. We gave out some money around the state and took care of things. There was $200 million that we gave out to counties and local governments a couple of weeks ago in the e-board. They got requests for about 50 million of it, so they put together another small group of legislators to figure out what to do with the other 150, met with counties and city governments, and they came up with a plan, which hopefully will be getting out here pretty soon, to distribute that money to local governments. I've had conversations with the Associated Oregon Counties, and their concern is that when the money was given to the state, they basically said that of the $1.6 billion, 45% was to go to local governments. That would be about $624 million. And to this point, I think they have given you 50. When we did the $400 million a while back, $200 million was for money that the state had spent for the counties. I would love to know what that is and if it was things that the counties really wanted and needed. But the other, there's still another 200 and some million. And so that was one of the issues in the e-board this last time. We were concerned that some people were getting the second bite at the apple, i.e. The 3 jurisdictions that had over 500,000 people, they got a direct allocation. And we were concerned that we were starting to share the money that was supposed to go to the rest of the state with them again. So they were getting a second bite before many of our people had gotten a first bite. And Dave Gomberg can talk a little bit more about that because he really took the lead on that. And we've also been trying to have a conversation with people about, let's look at who got hurt the most and why and what they need, rather than just doing a per capita deal. There's not enough money for everybody, we know that, but our coastal communities have an average unemployment of 18%, and 3 of those counties, Coos, Lincoln, and Clatsop, are over 24%. So we are being crushed. And the other part about that whole thing is that in order for us to get back, we have to invite all the people where the big outbreaks were to come to our communities. And we've got to contract trace all those people when they come and visit us. If there's an outbreak, we've got to figure out where they went back to across the state or across the nation. And that's going to put extra impetus on our county health departments if they're going to try to keep up to that 70 or 80% contract tracing when they're all over the world after they visited us. So we have a lot of unique issues on the coast that we really like to have addressed, and Dave can talk a little more about that too. But mostly it's figuring out what's going to happen. We're anticipating another e-board fairly quickly. We're trying to figure out if we're going to have a special session, and I'm concerned about that because I think everybody wants to finish all the business they didn't have at the last session, and they're not thinking clearly, in my opinion, about just taking care of stuff that has to do with COVID related if we have a special session. And getting to an agreement before we walk in the door is really important, or we'll end up what we did in 2002 and 3, when we had a whopping $500 million to figure out how to deal with, and now we're at $3 billion. It's a little bit different, and I think having a plan before we walk in the building would be very, very helpful, which means having real conversations between my Republican and Democratic colleagues with the leadership, and I'm not sure that I've seen that yet. So that being said, I anticipate we will have a special session between now and into September. I just can't give you any more clarity about when that will be. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Senator. Do we have questions? It looks like Shannon Buckmaster.
This should be a fairly simple question, and it's partially for my education, and I suspect other people who are watching this might have the same question, so I'm going to be brave and just put this out there and say I don't know the answer. For a special session, is there some way that perhaps the governor could create an agenda that would limit the special session just to the most relevant topics, or is it simply that the special session comes in and anything that's introduced during that session becomes what we work on? Can you clarify that?
Sure.
Because we would have the same concern.
Sure. So once a special session is called, the governor has the ability to do that. And she has the ability to call 2 different kinds of special sessions. One is a emergency special session, which includes the ability to do so from remotely like this. We could have the meetings this way and so on. The other is a regular special session, which requires a quorum, both the House and the Senate, to meet, to bring us all together, and we have to be in person in Salem, and that's what we anticipate she wants to do. Once she calls it, she could have worked out deals with the leadership in both the House and the Senate and whatever to limit those things, but once we're in, it's like a regular session, and the leadership people are the ones that control what comes forward, and the committees and all that kind of stuff. And for me, it's really about balancing budgets, trying to figure out what we can do to offset what her direct allotment cuts were, and how can we ameliorate some of those kinds of things. And so the answer is, once we're in, it can get out of hand fairly quickly. And there is not as much control once we're there than there is trying to figure out something and come to agreements beforehand. So I would much rather that they work those details out before we walked in the building and got it done fairly quickly and got out of there. But that's me, and other people may have different ideas about it, because I will tell you, there are a lot of ideas about there of what everybody wants to do. And it's looking, when I look at the different lists that people have sent, it looks like a regular session, not like a special session. So I'm much more of the mind that we need to control it, that we need to really focus on what's happening in this emergency and dealing with the budget as opposed to all the policy bills that are running around. So that's me.
Thank you, Senator Roblan, for the clarification. And I would just appeal to all of our elected officials to do your individual parts to keep us focused on what matters most for our state. Thank you.
Yep.
And in this case, the further we go through it and the more we see the changes in the virus dynamics, it becomes more clear to me, at least, that the public health response and the business response are going to be with us for quite some time. So mine, at least. We have Mayor Cape, and then we'll go to Abisha Stone next with questions for Senator Roblan. And I want to say, Representative Post and Representative Gomberg, please feel free, since this is at the moment at least a discussion of legislative stuff. Please feel free to add things if you will. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to, number one, point out for Representative Post that we can improve his wardrobe if he would like. But more importantly, for Senator Roblan, the distribution of those CARES Act funds to the states, you know, I've read through some of the agreement and how they want to distribute those funds, and I understand your concerns from the AOC. And the LOC, the League of Oregon Cities, has asked us as mayors and cities to reach out and request that, you know, that moves forward. My question is what would that look like? When would we expect some movement on it, and how would that get moved forward to getting those dollars out to cities and counties?
So my understanding is the $150 million, which the group got together to kind of have a conversation about from that original $200 million that we put out, would go to the counties, be distributed also to the cities, that there would be a, I don't know what you would call it, a bank at the county level that would pay for cities for reimbursement, that each small city under 700 people would get, I think it was $50,000, and those bigger cities, it would start getting prorated based on the number of people in the population, and that again they would have to send in an expense sheet of what they bought with it before they got the money from them, because just like all this other money, we have to make an accounting for it or pay it back. So there is a belief, and I believe that's will be easy for our counties and cities to deal with. They do it all the time in grants and other things they get. Washington, Idaho, and a bunch of other states have given that authority to their local governments, and I think you guys could handle it. So it's figuring out, I was not involved in the actual figuring of the distribution, but I have gotten some emails and some conversations with people that said they would like me to support it. I understand that. The smallest of the cities would per capita get the best, but that has to happen because when you're really small, if you get, you know, for your 300 people, you get an allocation, it can't do anything with it because it isn't enough to do anything. So I think that those kinds of things were the right things to do. And I will be looking at that and talking with our caucus. Friday, we have a caucus meeting, so we'll hear more about it before then. So that's what I know so far.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner, this is David Gomberg, and the senator touched on this topic a few moments ago, but part of the issue I see evolving is this. The federal government sent money to Oregon, and part of that was directly allocated to jurisdictions with more than 500,000 people. That translates into Multnomah County, Washington County, and the city of Portland. They received $250 million, and the rest of Oregon got $1.6 billion. Now, the issue is that when we made the first round of allocations for healthcare reimbursements, that was only going to areas outside of Multnomah and Washington counties. But the money that the senator is now talking about, the 150, is the other portion of that healthcare reimbursement. And the reports coming back to us are that that will be available to all jurisdictions in Oregon. So while a minimal amount may be going to our smallest cities, the rest will be dispersed on a per capita basis. And that means that most of it will go to Portland, leaving the rest of us to deal with proportionally less than we might have had otherwise. That's an area of concern for those of us outside the metropolitan area.
We do need to check that because my understanding was that it was not going to those three jurisdictions, only to the others, but we'll have to figure that out.
Well, you know, I'm hearing mixed reports on that as well, Senator, but certainly the money that we distributed on our e-board meeting last Friday, and that was $250 million, that was going to all of Oregon, and I know that you had expressed concerns about that going in just as I did.
Clearly true, but yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you, and thank you for that addition, Representative Gomberg. I'd like to make sure that Abisha Stone gets her question in now.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Senator Roblan. I might be asking you to repeat yourself because I may have just missed this in your update, but it's my understanding that going into last week's e-board meeting, there were still $18 million that team had to potentially allocate for recovery efforts. First of all, is that accurate? And then secondly, if so, were those monies allocated and where did they go?
I'm not sure what the 18 million you're talking about is. So either of the other two remember what that 18 million was?
Well, I think the question actually might be that we allocated dollars for a variety of recovery efforts ranging from rent and utility supports to behavioral health, to child care, to broadband, to supporting victims of domestic and sexual violence. But there were two items on the agenda that were pulled back. One was for 25 million and the other was for 50 million that were intended to go for small business recovery. And those items were pulled back to be reworked a little bit more, particularly because of concerns that maybe they weren't getting dispersed on an equitable basis or to areas that were having the greatest challenges in the small business community right now. Those items were pulled. Let me also just explain the e-board process. The e-board meeting was on Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Senator Roblan and I serve on the e-board, and we received details on what we would be voting on at about 3 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, 24 hours before we were being asked to disperse about $320 million.
Which was a bit frustrating.
Yeah, and I want to just add a comment to that. I really appreciate, Senator Roblan, your comments about being planful and mindful, and I appreciate the fact that, especially given a short amount of time, to make decisions regarding that funding that you've decided, hopefully collectively, to reset and pause and review those funds through some funding that has come through Business Oregon, which I have been grateful to see come through for business support. I feel as though we could be better at a state level in strategizing and then deploying programs in accordance to that strategy and ensuring that we are actually meeting the businesses where their real need is, while utilizing our regional partnerships to do that. And I feel as though we have some work to do there.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Other questions for Senator Roblan? All right, well, thank you very much, Senator Roblan. I saw your email this morning, your newsletter, talking about the Lincoln County situation, and I really appreciated it, just as a constituent and as a member of the community who has a heightened awareness of it. So keep up the good work there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Representative. Yeah, you have very thoughtful staff. What can I say? Representative Post, what would you like to tell people here in the community and at large?
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate it as always, and hello, everybody. A couple of things. I want to tag on to what the senator said about special session. Basic Oregon civics, and he gave a good explanation of it. The long session or regular session, whatever you want to call it, and the odd numbered years is set at, what is it, 180 days, I believe it is?
135.
135, okay. And then the short session in what we just had in this even numbered years, 35 days. But the reason I say that is there is a definitive start and a definitive finish. A special session, there's no limits on anything whatsoever. So what he said is so very correct. And so Shannon, to your question, I have seen, because of some friends that I have over in the other caucus, have given me some of their lists. And the senator's right on. There's a lot of stuff that people want to pack into a special session. And I'm very much of the mindset that we need to deal with this situation, this financial situation that we're in. And that's it. And then get out of there. And then get through the elections and then get to 2021 and do whatever we do then. But that's just, I just wanted to emphasize what Senator Roblan said because he's so correct on that. The one thing I just was looking forward to the subjects, Commissioner Kulla, that you sent today, or whenever it was yesterday in your email. I'm really looking forward to some of the subjects you want to get a hit on. I just wanted to add one little thing, because I always find it fascinating to let you know what comes into my legislative inbox. And there's been a little bit of a shift this week. I don't know if Senator and Representative Gomberg, if you're getting this, but I'm getting youth sports emails up the wazoo. And that's not Washington State. We're being asked about what to do about high school and youth sports. And I sent an email, among many emails, to OSAA, asking them, what are we doing? You know, what do you hear from the governor's office? Because the governor's office hasn't been very clear on this. Although there is a sports guideline sheet that's out, that's on the OHA or in the governor's website. But it's not, it doesn't, for instance, my staff, Abby, is the volleyball coach at Dallas High School. Is volleyball going to be allowed? Because they start practicing in the next couple of weeks, normally. She can't get an answer, I can't get an answer. OSAA has apparently 3 options on the table. I'm looking at it right now. And I'd be glad to email this to people if they want. It's a photocopy of a JPEG. I couldn't get the actual document. The first option is to play all sub-varsity and varsity games regionally. So in other words, say Eastern Oregon is more open than Western Oregon, then only Eastern Oregon would play in only Eastern Oregon. Option 2 is they would start later in the fall and play 5 or 6 games only. I think this is directed towards football mostly from what I'm reading. And option 3, this one's really interesting, is flipping fall and spring sports. Because fall sports tend to have more contact. Football, basketball, volleyball. I know. So I don't know what's going on, but I just wanted you all to be aware of whatever school district, or not school district, but whether it's high school or middle school or just standard youth athletics. I don't know what's next, but I'm being bombarded by parents saying, I need to know. And so I just want to throw that out to everybody. Keep an eye on that. It's something that I'm watching closely.
I was going to go to the 2 mayors on the call, and they've raised their hands. Comments or questions to add to Representative Post?
Representative Post, can you clarify what that document is that you said you'd share with us?
I tried to get an answer from OSAA and what they were thinking, and they sent me a picture of a, how do I get it? It's a picture of a JPEG, and I copied it off on my copier.
And I mean, what is the content of the document? I guess I had seen some communication from OSAA that when I questioned the governor's office about it, they said was errored, and I was under the impression that OSAA had now corrected their communication. But because I have asked a lot of questions about youth sports as well, and again, it's because I've been asked by lots of folks, and of course, because I work at the high school, our athletic director, of course, has also sought clear guidance on planning for the fall. So I'm just curious if you have something in your hand that I haven't seen.
Let me. I'm going to disappear off here for a minute and open my email. I think I have this as an attachment, and if so, yes, I do. It's a JPEG, and it just came from one of the persons at OSAA. So I can't tell you the origination. So let me, I think, can I just attach it to something here on the chat?
I think so. Mayor Cape, while Representative Post is working on that, do you want to ask anything? And then I also noticed that Senator Roblan has unmuted himself, and he does have Steve Prefontaine behind him. So
Yes, I do.
I was going to ignore that. He ran, so I'm not a runner. So, but that Representative Post, that first scenario that you presented there about the regionalization of sports, that's actually in a guideline that came from the CDC about education and what to expect, what their recommendations are. That came out, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago from the CDC. And I know us and Salem Kaiser, and I work again with the transportation, so we would be involved with getting the kids to those events, right? And so we have had some discussions about that, and I think you got two different groups giving out two different messages, right? You got OSAA saying, hey, this is what we're going to let you do, and then you got the governor's rules of saying this is what you can do, and they don't mesh. And for whatever reason, the two sides haven't really, I think, gotten together and figured that out. And then on top of that, you still got ODE that hasn't really given very much direction to schools yet as to what that's going to look like going forward. So it is a huge mismatch of information, and none of it really cohesive and working together, and causing a lot of confusion for everybody. I know for us at Salem Kaiser, when we're looking at it, it's been a very confusing problem as well, and so we're just kind of waiting and trying to develop contingency plans for if this happens, then we can do this, and if this happens, then we can do that, so that we can kind of have at least half a foot forward whenever we get told what we actually can and can't do. So we're really waiting for the direct instruction, which, I think needs to come soon, at least some kind of direction.
I have two documents here. I don't know how to, I have them saved on my desktop. How do I get them in this chat thing?
I don't think you can share images to the chat, but you can attach it to the email where I send out the invitation, so that everybody invited to these meetings would be able to have access to it.
Oh, crud. I don't have that email on this laptop.
Representative, I can send you an email in that link, and then you can just hit reply all and it'll go out to all of us.
Send it to Bill.
Also, I just forwarded you a graphic that's been sent to me, and if you say that that's the same thing, I can send it to the group. I have that last email. So take a peek and just let me know if that's the same thing you're looking at.
I need you to send it to bill@billpost.com.
Okay.
That's the only email I have on this laptop. Sorry.
Okay, great. And then Mayor Wojtowski, did you have a further comment? But I just want to remember that Senator Roblan also unmuted himself.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Cabe, for those points. I did want to clarify, there had been that kind of contradictory messaging from ODE, OSAA, and the governor's office. On Thursday, there was a really big meeting with like 180 some athletic directors and OSAA, and they did send a follow-up email that now everybody is on the same page, and it is in alignment with the governor's order, which is that they are waiting until a minimum of July 1st before they start on-campus workouts. And anyway, there's some further communication there, but that was all clarified on Thursday or Friday. So a lot of that contradicting information that was probably coming back to a lot of folks in leadership was clarified last week.
Okay, great, thank you.
Except I would say July 1st is right around the corner, and we need direction for going forward, so, but.
Yeah, what they clarified was permissible facility use. So certainly they did not clarify all of the game rules or competitions or schedules or capacities for observers or anything like that, but they did clarify use of facilities.
Great, and that's wonderful, because I remember, Mayor Wojtowski, that that was a question that you really wanted answered, maybe last Tuesday even. And I had it written down somewhere to find out, but you got it. Senator Roblan, did you have something you wanted to add?
And Remy, I just sent back to you something. No, what you sent has actually been really helpful in another thing, and that is playgrounds. As of last Friday, I could not get any information on where the playground's open or not open in phase 2. And then that graphic that you just sent me, which is the guidance tool, that's a big chart thing, that has playgrounds on it. It also, to another point that I've talked about before on this weekly calls, is the churches. I had 4 persons in the governor's office, 4 different persons, tell me 4 different things on what was allowed for faith-based venues. One was 1,500, one was up to 250, with social distancing of 35 square feet, which you may have heard in the press conference last Thursday or Wednesday, whenever it was. Dr. Seidlinger said that. So that graph that you just sent out, the guideline chart actually says 250 max. So if you're in phase 2, you can have, if you have a room that will hold 250 with the social distancing, you can now have 250. So for instance, I talked to one of the churches in Newburgh, decided they're going to do 250 in their sanctuary and 50 each in other rooms that are not connected. So they could literally have 500 people. So, but the playground was a big thing. A lot of people asking me about playgrounds, but what I sent you is the OSAA thing. And so if you want to share that with everybody, go ahead. I don't know how to do that apparently.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Representative. And thanks for your help, Councilor Drapkin. Any other thoughts or questions for Representative Post? Yes, Remy. Councilor.
I don't have that in your email in my inbox yet, so if you'll make sure it's sent. I wanted to go back to concerns around the special session, putting the concerns aside. If one does get called, you mentioned wanting to keep things specific to COVID-related funding. I'm wondering if, to all whom this question is applicable, if you would consider House Bill 4001 as applicable COVID-related funding. That's my main question. And then I can also talk to a little bit more about playgrounds, or I can save that.
Do you want to review
housing?
Yeah.
4001. That's the siting, super siting ability. Is that right?
Yeah, navigational centers. Yeah.
So clearly the House Speaker wants that. It was her bill. It comes up all the time. None of those bills exist right now. Just so you know, once the session's over, they go away. So they have to redraft it. So it certainly will not be that number, and it certainly will not be whatever, but it has to be redrafted. I believe it is one of the things on the list of hundreds that are out there. And from the perspective of a COVID issue, it is part of a COVID solution for what we need to do with respect to housing. But I can't tell you that it's raised to the level from all of the caucuses, whether it's important or not. And one of the hard things, I don't know if you were around when we had our last session, but it didn't end well. And so bringing back bills exactly the way they were then is not necessarily something that leads to the ability of everybody to work together. Now, parts of that should probably, I think, yes, but it'll look a little different, I expect. But I think that is a conversation that could happen in this kind of a session, along with all the budget changes we have to do in our Ways and Means process.
Yeah, good question. Thank you, Councilor. Mayor Wojtowski, did you have something to add about playgrounds?
Yeah, I was going to add both clarity on the direction on playgrounds, but also a little frustration with the context that Representative Post commented on. I know we were all told on Friday that playgrounds were still closed. Playgrounds were listed as prohibited still on the phase 2 guidance that was posted on the governor's website. So I was caught off guard and quite honestly pretty angry when a constituent shared with me the OHA guidelines that included playgrounds and essentially said, go open the park right now, you terrible person. This has been open. That's a very difficult and inconsiderate position to put cities and counties in. I called the governor's office immediately, who did clarify that playgrounds were officially being added. It would have been significantly preferred. So what I was told by Leah Horner was that they received some more recent public health guidance that they needed to pivot the advice for, which is great. We always want to pivot and adjust when we get new information. Certainly I can support that. But it would have been preferred, to me anyway, if they had notified cities and counties. It looks like we can open playgrounds safely and then given us a heads up rather than simply slapping it onto a document and putting it on an OHA website when the governor's office websites were still listing them as closed. So I did go back and forth enough that Jody eventually sent out an email saying, yes, playgrounds are open. We opened our playground this morning after going through a sanitation process. But it was very frustrating to have that come from a constituent complaining rather than having the governor's office communicate that to cities. And when I was calling staff and saying, no, we need to go cut the caution tape down, we need to get this sanitized, we need to open our restrooms, we need to get caught up with this. Of course, their response was, we need to wait till there's official word. And the document I know that Remy shared with Representative Post, was all I had to rely on. And quite frankly, it wasn't a clear document. It didn't have attachment of sector guidelines. It didn't have any safety protocols we were required to follow. They're still saying there's frequently asked questions coming out. We don't have them in hand, but we open our park and we open the playground. My constituents are ready to have some outdoor recreation opportunities. So yeah, they are open. I do expect there to be more forthcoming information in this frequently asked question sheet that the governor's office is still working on. But again, just to vent a little on that, perhaps, it would have been great if that was, if the guidelines preceded slapping playgrounds on a new document so that cities had a second to make sure that we had our parks safely prepared for that. Rather than having that push come from the public who happened to stumble across that OHA sheet. That was not handled well at all, in my opinion, and it kind of turns us into the bad guys when we didn't close the playgrounds to begin with. They were closed by the governor's office, and as a courtesy, we should have been given a couple days to make sure that they were ready to be reopened.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Mayor. I echo the mayor's concerns and observations about that, and I was not hit nearly as hard around that as the mayors, frankly, in cities around this county have been. It was a surprise, and whew. So, Councillor Drabkin, would you like to add?
I received a fair amount of communication about playgrounds as well, and deferred, of course, to our Parks and Rec director, who sent me an email saying, well, the state has reopened, that not all the specifications and guidelines have been released yet. And so McMinnville is planning to reopen soon, but according to our Parks and Rec director, was waiting for specific guidelines. And then the city of McMinnville will be putting out more information on our social media and webpage soon. And also Parks and Rec director says we're looking forward to our community using the playground safely again soon.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that addition. Just one comment is that in Jody Christensen's comments to me, she said that OHA has pivoted from how do we sanitize the equipment to, okay, you have to sanitize your child. And that was all the direction I got, but I understood how that perspective had changed. So, Joya, what would you like to say?
I had a question for Councillor Drabkin. Do we have any guidelines on pool and whether we're going to open the pool or not anytime soon? Have you heard anything on that?
I don't know where we are on pool. I'll find out, except I saw Commissioner Kulin nod his head, so maybe he knows more than I do.
Okay, thank you. I just thought I'd ask.
I'll report back on Friday.
Forgive me. Sometimes when I read things, I go, oh yeah, when I'm not referring to you. Forgive me. But along those lines, I'd love to return back to Al Bannon for a federal update. But I would also like to note for the record that Joya has a comment about the special session and the commercial activities tax. And that was around as businesses get close to that threshold, is there any consideration in a special session for changing the threshold? So.
Well, can I just say something? And I think Senator Roblan is far more knowledgeable about this than I am. But as much as I would like that again is some policy. And that's not going to bring people to the table to get other things done. So though I would really love to see that, is it Joya? Is that how you say it? Joya? Joya, I would really like to see that. I think that it would be another stumbling block, for lack of a better term. I would just prefer that we not do any policy. And I know there's going to have to be some. There's no way to avoid it. But I'd like to really stay away from anything. Let's just stay right here, focused on recovering from this coronavirus situation. So I hope that makes sense. But that's just my opinion. I'm sorry.
It does. No, thank you, Representative Post. That makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate you saying that. It's just on my radar screen for our businesses, and I appreciate the comment. And I agree with you probably. Let's stick to just getting over and through this, right?
And I totally agree with what was just said. I just don't, those are the kinds of things that blow up the system. And we don't really need that. We need to go in with things we can agree on. So I agree.
Yeah, thank you very much, both of you, for that. Thank you for asking the question, Joya, and I really appreciate the perspective. All right, Al Bannon, what can you update us on and the people in the community?
Hi, I don't have much of an update, although I'm happy to answer any questions or see if I can get any information and follow up with anyone. But before we go into some Q&As, I do want to share that the Congresswoman will be holding 3 town halls next week. So she'll be giving update. I'll share the dates in just a moment, and then I'll put the information in the chat box. But she'll be giving a pretty comprehensive federal update to folks, and then opening it up to a very large Q&A, which will be the primary focus of the town hall meeting. So I'll go through it a little bit slowly so folks can write it down if they want to. The first one will be Wednesday, June 17th. That's at 6 p.m. And I'll say all 3 of these are open to everyone in her district. I mean, they're open to everyone, but usually we go county by county, but these are just going to be open all district town hall meetings. So folks can join at the time that works best for them. The second one will be Thursday, June 18th at 1 p.m. And the final one will be Saturday, June 20th at 11 a.m. I will send a link that you can pre-register for. Once you pre-register, you will get a call before the meeting. I should know how many minutes before the meeting. I'm not sure. You'll get a call before the meeting. You'll sign up, you'll put your phone number in, and then that number will call you to join the call. And then if you want to ask a question, we'll be giving instructions on how to ask a question. If you don't want to ask a question and just want to listen, there's a link that you can join to watch it live stream. So that's next week, and there are 3 of them, and please feel free to share with your networks. I should be sending out a flyer to folks at some point this week, either this week or early next week as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Al.
And I just sent it privately to Shannon. So Shannon's the only one who has all of the information. No one else can have it.
There you go. All right, thank you. Questions for Al?
Okay, all right, good. They'll save them for the Congresswoman next week, right?
So our household, actually, this was a question, was unemployment benefits, including the PUA and the $600 extra. There are there a time period, right? Is
Yes.
there any conversation at the federal level about what happens when we reach the end of that time period?
Yeah, that's a great question, Commissioner. The time period, I believe, is July, and in the bill that passed the House, it's written in there to extend it through the end of the year. But as we know, that bill is sitting in the Senate, so it depends on how that moves forward.
Okay, great.
And then other than that, assuming it doesn't move forward before July, which I think is a fair assumption to make, then the benefits will go back to UI benefits as they were pre-pandemic.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions for Al? All right, great. Thank you very much. That was simple. I'm just going to assume that we have Commissioner Sterrett on the phone as our 7501.
Correct, Commissioner.
All right. What would you like to tell people here on the call and in the community?
Well, at this point, I'm just pretty much gathering information. Got an email from Jody, as I think a lot of people did, or maybe not. We had some questions about libraries, and that one was interesting in that libraries were never required to close, but some chose to close. So there were some constituents asking about that. And then, of course, the playground question has come up a number of times. The pool question has come up. And, of course, always the number of gatherings. That one seems to be tripping people up in terms of the phase 2. So I've just been trying to respond with the information as it's coming in, as everybody else is.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Are there questions for Commissioner Sterrett? All right, well, Thank you, Commissioner Sterrett. I will move on to the cities then. Mayor Cape, what would you like to tell people in the community?
Not a whole lot. I would say that our library is starting the reopening process, since the Commissioner Sterrett mentioned that. So we did close it because our building is a rather small building, and our librarians are of more advanced age, and we're very concerned for their health. And so they didn't feel comfortable coming in and working. So it seemed, if you don't have anybody there, you might as well close it. But they've put together a real nice plan, I think, with some staged openings to kind of move forward. They're going to take it slow, starting, I think it's next week, by going in and kind of cleaning and disinfecting everything, since it's been shut down for a while. And then it's going to start with just kind of curbside delivery pickup service type deal. And then, I think we're not going to allow use at our computer stations for the immediate future. There's going to be, one-way travel pass, which, like I said, in a small building, you kind of only have one-way travel path anyways. So kind of works good with that. And then we're also going to look at, there's that company mentioned making the UVC lights in McMinnville, and we're going to look into possibly maybe getting some of those to help the librarians disinfect and the books as they get, and materials as they get returned back, because I know that's also one of their big concerns, getting a high number of items returned, and not knowing where they've been exactly. So we were fortunate enough, speaking of parks, that we don't have to worry too much about it, because we're going to be closed anyways because of construction. So I will take that as a blessing in disguise. And but we are moving forward with that, still looking at probably middle of July to be able to reopen our facility. So that's great. I know I've kind of talked a little bit more than normal, but I just want to touch real briefly on schools and kind of what we are planning. As I mentioned, we have had some discussions of, contingency plans, what ifs this, what if that's. So we are looking at being able to transport students for a variety of activities, but it would be much reduced capacities, whereas normally you can get about 60 to 70 students on a bus, we'd be looking at around 10 to 12 students. So in needing to double, triple, quadruple the number of vehicles to transport kids to and from activities, that would be a big thing. As far as school day goes, there's still is no real set guidance on that. I believe there is a working group that ODE is working with to try and develop what those guidelines are going to look like. Certainly not heard anything definitive or anything like that, but I have the impression that it's going to be kind of a mesh of in-person and distance learning online. So probably having one set of students, whether that's an age or a class or whatnot, they would go to school on like day A, and then day B they would stay home and distance learn, and that group of students that would go in to the school on day B would stay home on day A and distance learn. So I think that seems to be the most popular concept, not just in Oregon that's been discussed, but across the country. So I think you probably have some kind of variable along those lines to look at for schooling. So, but nothing set in stone, nothing really, and that's kind of where the frustration comes. We, just like all of us, in schools, you got hundreds of parents saying, well, what do I got to do, and what's it going to look like? Because I got a plan, and we don't know. So,
all right.
But thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. I want to get to Councillor Drabkin from the City of McMinnville before she has to go to her meeting. Councillor Drabkin, what would you like to tell people on the call today?
Thank you very much. So on the pool question, we are working on reopening, but we do not have a reopening date set as of yet. McMinnville did close our library. We did have a reopening date set. I think it was actually for the 7th, or it might have been for today, but all of our barrier materials didn't arrive in time to get it up. So that the library will reopen, I believe it's on June 17th. We are getting a lot of response on requests from the community to defund the McMinnville Police Department, sharing those with our Chief of Police, and our Chief of Police has put together a document responding to the 8 can't wait and what policies the McMinnville Police Department currently what's applicable within the McMinnville Police Department. I'm sure he'll be sharing that at council tonight, as well as we'll be posting that on our social media channels. Our parks, as I said earlier, we are working on reopening. And then I did put this in the chat, some of that e-board money that was released specific to rental assistance. YCAP has received $1.3 million in rental assistance dollars that will need to be spent over the next 6 months. That's a tremendous amount of money for us, and they are prepared and ready to start using it right away so people can start stabilizing jobs, health, etc. And they're not able to start issuing checks yet, but anticipate they will be able to start releasing that money into the community probably within the week. Then just also on the wine industry, both Oregon Wine Board, Willamette Valley Wineries Association has been releasing from the Diversity, Equity, Belonging and Inclusion Task Force has been releasing statements supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, and so that's been a lot of conversation within the wine industry, both at Oregon Wine Board level and Willamette Valley Wineries Association. And I have my entire staff waiting in another Zoom meeting, so I do need to jump. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And I should let Abisha Stone say this, but there is an ag webinar, and I hate the word webinar. So there's an ag specific online discussion that perhaps Abisha Stone could speak about. But Mayor Wojtowski, who just disappeared, maybe we were going to have her do an update. How about an update from SEDCOR while we're waiting for Mayor Wojtowski?
Sounds good. So thank you, Commissioner. So SEDCOR had been asked by some partners at the state to host this webinar on Thursday. And I can try to drop that link into this chat if I can multitask effectively enough. And you can find it on the SEDCOR website, www.sedcor.com, and you can share that out with folks. So what this is intended to do is to help our community understand that $30 million that's being made available to ag, what the programs are, how to access it, what it's intended to do. So we're just hosting that webinar, and we'll have some folks who are well informed actually speaking it. It won't be us presenting. I did want to give a couple of follow-ups about some funding that we've been pursuing. As I've shared with this group, we at a regional level have been trying to approach some funding, and this gets a little bit back to the comments I was making earlier about the strategy being deployed by the state. We decided to write for a 3-county ask for round 1 Business Oregon funding from their first $5 million that they put out. And I have to say that I feel that, the organization is well intended, but I do feel as though the strategy was not clearly determined, nor was the program deployed against what the strategy was conveyed to be. So we put together a 3-county ask that addressed every single community in all 3 counties, that had an allocation model that was focused at addressing underserved, historically underserved populations. We had partnered with the Council of Governments to administer the grant and Willamette Workforce Partnership to administer the actual grant program to businesses. It was as partnered of a regional ask as one could develop. And for the 3-county region, we were funded at $57,000. And some of our local adjoining communities were funded at $45,000 and above for single communities. I am not sad that any of our local communities were funded directly. I think that's wonderful. I support them. I also feel as though this is one of those places where the strategy was not clear. And even if it was not executed in that sort of a way. And we fall short when we do this, right? So this is exactly the type of partnership that I think needs to be had in order to execute the distribution of these funds in accordance to the intent of the state when these monies come through the e-board or any other direction. And I want to be a good partner in this work and making sure that those funds are gotten out to the businesses, that the administrative parties have the wherewithal to administer them appropriately and to report on the back end. We also, I have to report another disappointing experience. We, after SEDCOR put together our directory of local manufacturers providing PPE, we received a surprise email that the state had put together a directory. And unfortunately, our business partners in the Mid-Willamette Valley were not included in that list of businesses. And again, I do not think that there is any malicious intent, but these are significant misses in communication and partnership, and they impact our business community, those that we're intending to serve. So we can do better. And when I say that, I mean we jointly, but strategy needs to be a part of this. And if I think we're trying to work quickly, and I think we can slow down in order to structure things appropriately. So SEDCOR, in partnership with our 3-county group, did again submit for round 2 funding that Business Oregon put out, their next $5 million. And we will be finding out this week, hopefully, if we're securing any of those funds. And I am hopeful that it will be a more significant funding amount, and that we'll actually be able to stand up a significant program in this 3-county area to serve our businesses. So more to come on that. And please, of course, continue to keep me posted with other opportunities that we might submit a regional ask against. And if any of you have any questions or would like further conversation about that offline, I'm available at your disposal. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And again, I feel like I'm like Mayor Cape, and that I'm going to say, help farmers become price makers, not price takers. But
absolutely. And we have quite a few of our farming partners that are looking to do projects that are really significant in these coming months and facing some opposition in actualizing those projects. And I'll be reaching out to many of you independently in order to pursue resources for these partners who are looking to set price, not take price. So thank you for that, Commissioner.
And I feel like I should take this off since I've got one of them as a land use hearing this week. Mayor Wojtowski, what would you like to tell people now that you're back from master scheduling?
I'm not actually back from master scheduling, but thank you. Yeah, hearing Abisha share a little bit about her experience with some of that actually sounds, I mean, it's not the same story, but it sounds like it's a similar story to changes that have a big impact on cities and really not having good communication strategy. It's been, it's been frustrating to try. I have sent dozens of communications, phone calls, texts, emails, offering any level of service that the governor's office would ask of me. I've offered to, try to advise from my school role, from my mayor role, other community roles I have. I've tried to help where, I'm chair of YCAP and tried to bring these experiences in, and that has not gone anywhere. It hasn't been fruitful. Additionally, it's the shifts that seem to really hurt us. We get a communication, here's how things are, but when they change, we don't get a heads up. We don't have any kind of transition or lead time, and that really hurts cities. And it puts it, like I said earlier, the phrase, kind of makes us the bad guy when we're not ready to pivot because we didn't have any warning. I would have liked to have put, hand sanitizing stations in a park before we opened it. I would have liked to have been able to facilitate some changes like that. Of course, it turns out that they're all gone at this point. But, I'd really like to see better communication, better collaboration, just across the board with some of these very broad approaches for regional decisions. As far as the city of Dayton, we're continuing our urban program through the month, like I said, trying to help our residents with their utility bills and continuing to support local business. We're still working on our Reimagine Community event series. So we're working on the Band on the Run and the Don't Stand So Close to Me social dinner. Those things are progressing. We did open our parks this morning. So they're ready to roll. The playgrounds are open, the picnic areas are open. We spread out our tables to encourage and allow for social distancing, and we're asking residents to leave those in place so that people can sit with their families but not be too close to others. And as you're all well aware, the other big part of my life, of course, is education, as I sit in a meeting today on my campus. And we're really anxious to see some guidance from ODE, from the legislature about what things will look like in the fall, but also how we will pay for them. There's been a lot of discussion about changes in spacing, square footage requirements for students, and I teach in an old high school where we don't have anywhere near the facility space to accommodate what the state is leaning towards. So being able to figure that out is going to be really vital for success in public schools. And also, again, we, of course, we're expecting SIA money from that CAT tax that we are now not planning to rely on. So we're, having, it's effectively a budget cut for planning purposes. So we're getting rid of staff that we really badly needed. We're increasing our class sizes at a time when we're being told kids need to be spaced apart. And schools are going to be in a really tough position in the fall. And so I just want to express as strong of concern as I can for that, and hope that the legislature, whether they convene in a special session or a regular session or a magical new session type that doesn't even exist yet, whatever that looks like, that we're able to see some solutions that are going to work for our teachers and students. I have an immunocompromised child with an immune system disease. So of course I get worried about my own exposures in my workplace if I bring something home, and of course equally concerned at sending her into a classroom that where social distancing cannot be maintained, or where there's not financial support to meet these sanitation requirements, separation requirements, and things like that. So I have a lot of concerns about what our schools look like in the fall, and I'm just kind of sitting on pins and needles waiting to hear more about what they should look like, and then of course the bridge for how do we get it there.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Mayor. I know that the county is continuing to move forward with our mental health counselors who are going to be assigned to schools, knowing that the plans might change, but we are moving forward, kind of essentially hoping. But
will you tell me a little bit more about that, Commissioner? I don't really know about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So as part of the student success, is it you said
Student
SIA?
Success Act? Yeah.
Okay. SSA. Yeah. The Yamhill County Health and Human Services has mental health counselors who I believe are assigned to school districts, and here I am in public kind of flubbing the explanation of it, but from our end, we're planning that the money will be there for the mental health counseling. So we'll see. Yeah. And do we have any comments or questions for Mayor Witowski? I think that
Come on, legislators, I need some good encouraging comments. Thank you, Representative Post.
I was calling on you.
Looking to see if Mrs. Post, the teacher, is still across the hallway. I believe me, we want school really bad, because I'm not used to having her here. So sorry if that's for selfish reasons. I'm used to being home alone. Anyway, no, the stories that she's been telling me. I mean, there are kids, there is no way around it, but there are kids that are not safe at home. And school is the safe place for them 5 days a week for X amount of hours a day. And I think that troubles her. She's a special ed teacher. And so it troubles her greatly because she knows some of her kids and where they come from. And they're in very dangerous situations and they need to be in school. So I wish I could wave a magic wand and make something happen. I really do. It breaks my heart to hear her tell me those stories.
So I have been having conversations with OSBA, with the governor's office, with Colt Gill, all regarding this. The economists that came together that the governor called all said the two things where you need to spend money, education and healthcare. If we really want the economy to come back, those are the places. The economy can't work without schools being the caretakers of our kids. I mean, we just don't have the people without it. And so the conversations range anywhere from, we have about $1.6 billion, $1.4 billion in reserve funds right now, the Education Stability Fund and the others. So we're better capable of dealing with a typical recession than we've ever been in the history of Oregon with regard to that. So how much of that do you want to spend, recognizing that right now we have the ability to open those funds and get the money out? 6 months from now, we might not be, because we might be on a rebound. And so if you leave too much in there, all of a sudden it comes up the next recession. So it might not be able to be used. And we're going to have a difficult 4 years. So the estimates are, another 4 to 5 billion shortfall next biennium, another 3 billion after that one. So these are really large numbers. We had an extra $1.2 billion in the ending fund balance this time because we didn't do a lot of stuff during the last session. That has been helpful. So we actually believe that we could do pretty similar to what we've done in the past with about $600 million as opposed to using all of the billions of dollars. So the question comes down, will we make a decision that will take and try to hold harmless the stuff for the rest of this biennium, which takes us till next July, or do we break it into thirds and keep the money back so that we have money for the next two bienniums, or the idea that we should just save as much money as we can because we don't know how bad it could get later. So I think I for one am of the opinion that we should put a little bit more in now, with the understanding that this is unlike any other recession we've ever had, and we might come out of it better than we have others. If we can get that vaccine and other stuff happening, we might see an uptick that would actually take care of some of this kind of stuff. And so in talking to OSBA and some of the others, I have said we need to try to, and we also need to make sure that you shouldn't waste a crisis. And we all know, Student Success Act pointed out clearly that we have some gaps in how we treat kids in our society. The whole Black Lives Matters thing is pointing that out society-wise, but education in general has had some problems. That whole Student Success Act was trying to ameliorate some of those and start putting money in places to do things, counseling, other kinds of things. And so my belief is that we shouldn't let that go to waste, and we shouldn't just put money back the same way it was before. We should make sure that we start making some of the systemic changes that we need to make. So I don't know that I will prevail in any of these conversations, but you have somebody in your court who believes that education needs to get funded as close to that 9 billion number that we could. And I know that that's going to be tough, and it means that other parts of the budget are going to take bigger hits. So that's the dilemma that we are all in. And I will tell you, in my subcommittee of Ways and Means, I have veterans and others. And if you want to get people upset, take a little bit of money away from the veterans. So I'm just saying, we all have, and they of all the people are better at lining up stuff to cut. I mean, I will give veterans credit for really trying to do their part in any of these things. But each and every one of those, and those people who are dependent on lottery money, which schools are hit 34 or 40% as opposed to the 18%. So we have a lot of work to do if we come into a special session with respect to budgets. And I, for one, and on the subcommittee on education, so I will be fighting for figuring out a way to keep education as whole as we possibly can, recognizing that they're going to have more expenses than they've ever had before. Just transporting kids is going to be triple what it was before. So figuring out ways to do those kinds of things is really important. But it's not going to be easy, and I would not tell you to plan on getting more. I would, that's kind of where I'm at. But I love your passion, and I personally, since I'm retiring at the end of this year, I could go for all of it now just to give it to you guys, and I would look good as I leave. But that's not probably the best, the best solution for everybody. But
Well, I wouldn't advocate for taking the money from veterans. I'm just putting that on the record. That's not where I want that money to come from.
Yeah.
So, Mayor, do you want to add anything more to that in reply to Senator?
I mean, he kind of got to something. What I really wanted to hear was, we'll be close to the 9, because of course that's what impacts our planning. And I'm literally in a room looking at how many seats we physically have in classrooms right now. And even if we were funded at 9, that barely covers having all of these seats in the classrooms. And it sounds like we probably won't be able to actually have these seats in the classroom, because let me tell you, kids are not sitting very far apart in my very small room that was constructed, before my grandparents were born. But I was really hoping to hear somebody who sat on the Ways and Means in the Subcommittee on Education say, yes, we will be close to 9. So if we're not close to 9, Senator Roblan, you will see me in your committee testifying and complaining very loudly. You might like me much less at that point.
No, it'll be good.
Okay.
I'm not the chair of that one, so I don't have to deal with that's a couple of my friends. So.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Representative Post and Senator Roblan, for adding those comments to that. I feel like it's really important for us. This is to me, the next conversation that we really need to have figured out. The next thing we need to have figured out with coronavirus. So thank you for getting that started here on this call too. Before we end, I'd love to make sure that Joya has a chance to speak to the community, and that Diane McLaren from Chemeketa Community College also has. So Joya, what would you like to tell people here on the call?
I'll be really quick. So Lemonade Day, super important for our kids. We love Lemonade Day, and we have pushed it to August 15th. So officially we're going out with that date. We're encouraging parents and kids to register for Lemonade Day at lemonadeday.org/McMinnville. Super easy to register your kid for that. On June 27th, we'll be having a handout where we hand out the bags. So every kid gets a backpack, has educational material in it, and they can register in advance for that. So we have their name on our list, and we can just hand them each a bag. Kids can also learn about Lemonade Day by signing up for Lemonopolis. So once they register, they can use Lemonopolis for free, and it will walk them through the entire educational program. And it's such a great program. I encourage every parent to get their kids involved in this in some manner, shape, or form. If they have any questions, they can certainly call the chamber at 503-472-6196. We did cancel officially Turkey Rama for 2020. No surprises there. And we will look at it for 2021 and expect it to be similar to what it has been in the past. We're working on a business support workshop schedule so we can help our businesses kind of on the road back to recovery. And we're looking at doing a greeters in person. I'm so excited. Outdoors. I know, I can't wait. I miss seeing people. And we're looking for the end of June to do that. So more on that as we move forward. So we are, and our office is officially open. Thank you. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Joya, very much, and congratulations. Before we're off, Diane McLaren, Director of Community Relations for Chemeketa Community College. Are you still on? And what would you like to tell people in the community? And thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Yes, I'll give you an update from Chemeketa Community College. We continue to stay closed with some exceptions. We will be offering summer term remotely. We will be offering some labs, mostly career and technical education labs this summer. And I don't know how many will be open at the Yamhill campus, but 20 labs overall through all our facilities. We will be probably taking the same approach for fall, working remotely, offering classes that way. But we will keep people posted on what we are able to offer, because we're really looking at hoping to open up more face-to-face classes. We are offering Wi-Fi in the parking lots of our facilities and certainly at the Yamhill campus. That is for students who cannot, access Wi-Fi at their home or wherever they're living. So they can park their car in the Yamhill campus parking lot and take part in their classes that way. And also I don't know if I said this, the testing center at Yamhill is open now. So that's very helpful in, continuing and certifying some of our students. So we'll keep you posted. I will add all of you to my community newsletter. Some of you are already on it, but I'll make sure that you're all on it and get updates.
Great. Thank you very much, Diane. Do you have any questions here on the call for Diane? All right. We've got Mir Cape and then Abisha.
Yes. My daughter needs to take driver's ed this summer. Is Chemeketa going to offer that?
Wow, I do not know, but I could find out for you. I don't know.
That would be wonderful because I've heard some people say yes and some people say no.
Okay, let me find out.
Diane, can you clarify, were you saying that Chemeketa at the Yamhill campus will offer some in-person classes?
I don't know what classes will be offered. It would be a lab, if anything, for career and technical. And we hope to offer DevEd and USL classes as well, face-to-face. Again, I think it's a little unclear. Were you asking about summer or just in general?
Oh, I meant in the fall. Yeah, sorry, I didn't know.
In the fall, I think we're still working on that. And so as soon as I know, I'm going to put it in my community newsletter and I can let people know which classes are going to be open face-to-face.
Great. Hi, Diane. This is Abisha. It's great to see you.
Hi, Abisha.
So I have to give a quick plug for the Small Business Development Center through Chemeketa Community College. They are a fabulous, fabulous resource that are really well staffed and just a great group of people to work with. And they have been really responsive to our business partners, even as they're working remotely. But do we have an update on when their general facilities and or in-person classes will resume?
They will stay on the same schedule as the rest of the college, which looks like we're going to be remote through the end of the year. But that could change. And I really do see the need, having been at CCBI, and I do see the need for a lot of businesses to access those things, those resources face to face. So I will keep you posted, Abisha, on that. And, I think in this time, we all just have to remain a bit flexible.
Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah, agreed too. That is the lesson of staying flexible. Do we have any last comments? Senator Roblan.
I would like to make one last comment. If you get my newsletter, there is a link to a Facebook Live presentation that my staff has been setting up for me and forces me to do. So it originates in a little radio station in Florence, Oregon, and we're doing what are called fireside chats. This evening, our fireside chat, and the link will take you to Facebook Live, is all about broadband, because we gave $20 million to work on broadband with regard to the last E-board meeting, and we want to talk a little bit about that and the needs across the state. So we know that there's a group called Link Oregon. The universities are putting together a really, really amazing high-speed optical cable network across the state, and it's already down the Willamette Valley, so community colleges and others can attach to it. They can do research and really have the kind of broadband you need. They're extending that to Southern Oregon now, to Klamath, and over the north end out to all the way to Baker. So we're trying to get that done. Eventually it'll go down the coast. But we're also trying to make sure that we try to figure out ways in which schools, there's a few of them that are still not connected, that we get all schools connected, and that we start doing some public-private work and we get some of these providers that are out there putting in cable and helping people get it to the last mile to every home eventually. So it's a conversation with myself, Pam Marsh, who is also on the broadband committee, which I'm on, from Southern Oregon, and Helm, who is from up in the valley, to have a conversation about that. And a person who is out of the state of Washington, name is Gurr, who's going to host it. And one of the Eastern Oregon IP providers, ISP providers, is also going to be on the line to talk about what they've been doing over in Pendleton and east of there. So if you're interested, it's about an hour long. You can go on Facebook Live, look at the link on our mailer, and we're going to try to do those once a week with different topics. And if you want to have a fun one, eventually we're going to have Betsy Johnson on, and she's always enjoyable. Talk about different things in the future. So hospitals and rural healthcare are going to be another topic at some point. So we're going to continue to have these conversations for a while. So if anybody gets online, we're welcome to have you. So thanks.
Representative Post, thank you, Senator Roblan.
Thank you, Senator. I don't want to, steal his thunder or anything like that, but as soon as you said radio station.
Exactly.
So just so you know, on my Facebook page, every Friday, I'm not in a fancy place. It actually looks like this, because it's this. I do a Friday night live every Friday night at 6 o'clock. And we have generally 15 to 1,800 people on at a time. And it's just talk. We don't bring any topics. I never bring a topic because I never did that with my radio show. I never had a topic. I would just open up and start talking, and people just start asking questions, and it's really fun. We're trying to figure out a way to convert it to Google Meet, because that would do this, where people could actually interact rather than typing their questions and their thoughts. So for now, we're doing Facebook Live, but I think we're going to start using Google Meets, just because Google Meets is a little more hack-proof, I found. I mean, it's Google. Look out, they own the world now, right? So anyway, but Arnie, if I could figure out a way to have you as a guest, I would have you as a guest. I just don't know how to do that. So, but I'm going to watch yours tonight.
Awesome. I've been noticing those, and I've been delighted with the descriptions. So that's right. There's a little broadband symbol on it. And I just want to note, Senator Roblan, that Abisha Stone and I have had kind of an ongoing conversation about high-speed internet access in our area. And something that has come up repeatedly is the need for not just the pipes in the ground and not just the connection to a house, but the ability to actually be able to afford it. For especially our rural residents, it really isn't just about having the infrastructure in place. And I don't know where you go with that, but I just wanted you to know that that's a big sticking point in our communities.
We have put some money out there to give a $12 a month subsidy to people of low income. So we are continuing to find ways to get money to help those ISP people who are, some are providing it free now and are not disconnecting, but we want to try to figure out ways to help with that. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Any last thoughts, everybody? It is an hour and a half's worth of conversation today. And I just wanted to note that for people in the community, as we see what Senator Roblan noted at the coast, as we see these increased case counts associated with both workplaces and beautiful hats, and the community spread, that we at the county level and at the state level as well recognize that we are going to have increased case counts as we increase activities that spread the virus. It's what we do about that that's really the important thing. It's the completing our contact tracing, and that requires people in the community to actually help us. We have to all trust that our contact tracers have our best interests at heart, right? And so when we give them information about, say, people that we may have come in contact with, that actually helps all of us with completing that contact tracing, getting the testing done, getting people into quarantine if they need it. So I just want to put a plug out there that we all really do have a role to play going forward, including by reducing our own transmission, as the folks in Lincoln are talking about with wearing face coverings. The science is kind of conclusive that, I know, right? We do know that reduced transmission of aerosols happens when you wear a face mask. I know that it's challenging to wade through all the scientific information that's out there, and we get conflicting information all the time, just like our playgrounds open, our playgrounds closed. Well, they're open today, but they were closed yesterday. And likewise, I think it's really important for all of us to do the things that we know are going to reduce transmission, but at the same time, we are going to have increased case counts. So it's just the reality of trying to live with the virus. So in the community, I hope people recognize that. I want people who are scared to not be scared, but I also want the people who are more casual about it to think about the things that you can do in your own lives to help all of us right now. So that was just my thoughts for the moment, but I really appreciate everybody being here on the call and folks in the community. Everybody here is working for you. And I can say that with 100% confidence. Get a hold of us if you need some help, and we'll try our darndest. But with that, I will see you all on Friday. Thank you very, very much.